Hey design friends, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief of Interior Design, and welcome everybody to NYC by Design Awards 2021. Oh yes. Today we're honoring your brilliance, achievement, and innovation at the epicenter of design, New York City. This year especially, New York needs some love, and today they're going to get just that. Now, can you believe this is year number 6 and we've hosted awards all around New York City? Remember the first one? That was held at MoMA, so that was a pretty fabulous start, don't you think? And later we headed downtown to the South Street Seaport with those floor-to-ceiling windows and those killer views, remember? And you all packed the house. And then lo and behold, last year, 2020. And well, we hosted the awards from my home. But you know what? You guys came out virtually any old way. Listen to this. Last year's award show had over 295,000 total impressions. I'm impressed. And 65,000 views. By the way, that's 3 times the size of Madison Square Garden. Oh my. I know. Hopefully next year, I get to hug you in person, but for now, virtual, here we go once again. Okay, let's get started. A humongous thank you to our NYC by Design Awards sponsors who make this event possible. Thank you, ICFF. Thank you, Wanted Design and Close Up. And thanks to our super pals, our sponsors Hayward and Turk. And a huge thanks to this stellar jury who worked alongside my team to choose the winners across all the categories. Thanks, guys. Well, you proved once again that design never stops. Even in these crazy times, we still received, listen to this, 553 submissions from 225 manufacturers and 113 design firms. Amazing. And in all 5 boroughs, I proudly add. And now, how about my cool backdrop? Yep, from my super pals and collaborators at Turf. So this time for you guys, I wanted something acoustical and sculptural that represented the X in NYC by Design. So look what I got. And the whole creative development process took only 2 weeks. So guys, when you want a custom design for your next project, you know who to turn to. Thanks, Turf. You guys were amazing. But what about you guys? What do you win? Well, you're gonna love the award because Turf designed it to match my backdrop. They changed the scale, refined it a bit, and we added a pop of color. Wait, you gotta see this. The award. Look at it. It's amazing. Thanks, Turf. They call it a desk monument, by the way. I love that. I mean, come on. And we color coded it. Pink for the product winners, orange for the project winners, and there are some special icon awards that will receive red. We'll reach out to winners with details within the week. And don't forget, you gotta take photos of your awards once you receive them, right? So tag us, tag NYC by Design Awards, tag Turf Design, and tag the Cindygram. And for our honorees, you'll get access to your NYC by Design Awards seals to use across your social channels. Now, close your eyes and imagine we are together. I will if you do. Are you ready to get started? Today, it's all about products. So, let's go. And our first category is accessories. And our honorees are Chilowich for rhythm placemats. And we have Evans E. Crane for drip drop plank mirror. Zigzag Zerg for Wazzer artist bedding. And Zulo for Zulo. And the NYC by Design winner for accessories is Zigzag Zerg for Wazzer artist bedding, using digital photography as a raw material for the work. Our next category is tabletop. And our honorees are Des for Vaz Na, Erica Cross Studio for Snug, Krosno for the Sacred Collection, Om for Gamma. And the winner for Tabletop goes to Krasno for the Sacred Collection by Kareem Rashid, representing the pure geometry of the cylinder and the cone. Okay, next is Industrial Design. And our honorees are Giorgetti for the Cuckoo Clock. We've got PepsiCo for SodaStream Professional. Trace through Scandi Spaces for Popsicle. And the winner for Industrial Design is Trace through Scandinavian Spaces for Popsicle. A waste bin that looks like the classic, well, Popsicle. Love that. Next is Architectural Products. And our honorees are Basalt for Chopin. And we have Bentheim Wall Systems for Projectable Glass Rain Screen. Caesar Stone for Calcutta Maximus. Cosentino for Decton Craftizen Collection. Skyline Design for Obscura. And Turf Design for Folded Tiles Collection. And the NYC by Design winner for hard architectural products are, we have Bentheim for the projectable glass rain screen. This is the world's first building. It's called the Momentary in Bentonville, Arizona, to use this rain screen system at 6,000 square feet. And for soft architectural products, the winner is Turf Design for the Folded Tiles Collection. Its structure stems from a dense row of fluted felt that's 60% pre-consumer recycled. Gorgeous. And our next category is hardware. And we have Bellwith Keeler Decor Solutions for the Corsa Collection. Ize Limited for Nexa. Nest Studio for Pinch. Sun Valley Bronze for Assemblage. And the winner for hardware is Ize Limited for Nexa by Zaha Hadid Design. They designed a handle that would form a single continuous line even when turning. And next we have bath. And our honorees are California Faucets for Style Drain, Drummond's for the Mercy, Duravit for Happy D2 plus C-shaped, and StellaWorks for Frame. And our bath winner goes to Duravit for Happy D2, designed by the uber-talented Seeger Design. Our next category, bath fittings. And we have About Water by Boffi and Fantini, AA27. Delta Faucet Company Trillion Bath Collection. House of Rawl Reflect Bath Collection. And Callista Central Park West. And Cheryl Wagner International for the Ceramic Dorian Faucet Set. Love the colors. And the NYC by Design winner for bath fittings goes to, drumroll please, About Water by Boffi and Fantini for AA27. Designed by Michael Anastasiades, the suspended spout does not touch the surface it's mounted on. Impressive. Next, we have kitchen appliances, and our honorees are Decor, the 30-inch combination wall oven. Elica for Nikola Tesla switch. Fisher & Paykel, the integrated bottom mount refrigerator freezer. And Liebherr for the monolith wine columns. And the winner in kitchen appliances goes to Elica for Nikola Tesla switch. Check out the circular element in the middle that flips and activates the hood. So cool. Next, we have kitchen cabinetry. And our honorees are GD Arredamento for the velvet eucalyptus. Moltenian C. Dada for intersection. Nero Cucine for NO37. Scavellini for Malia. And our winner for kitchen cabinetry goes to Molteni and C data for intersection, designed by Vincent van Dysent and reminiscent of architecture dominated by geometric proportions. Next, we have kitchen fixtures and fittings, and our honorees are California Faucets for the squeeze handle sprayer, House of Rawl for Tenerife kitchen collection, Kohler for the tone faucet collection, and Waterworks for mixed metal finishes. And the winner for kitchen fixtures and fittings goes to Kohler for tone faucet collection. It has Boost technology, increasing the flow rate by 30% to quickly fill the pots and pans. Now, that's super helpful. Love that. Next, we have contract flooring. And our honorees are Gone for Hayworth, Patch, and Cord. Interface for Chelsea Estate. Mohawk Group for Owls collection. Shaw Contract for Dialogue. And Top Carpet for easy recolor carpet tiles. And the winner for contract flooring goes to Gone for Hayworth for Patch and Cord. Designed by Patricia Archiola and created in India with experienced artisans who use 100% recycled plastic containers. Wow. Next, we have residential flooring. And our honorees are Eric Lindstrom for Paddock, Hey Matt for Mixed Teclon, Now Carpets, the Sea in the Sand collection, Tapis Rouge for Composition 22, and Warp and Weft for Midday Series. And the winner in residential flooring is, they're all so good, but the winner is Hey Matt for Mixed Teclon, a 70s color palette that's coolio and contemporary. Next, we've got hard flooring. And our honorees are Artistic Tile for Aquarelle, Concrete Collaborative for Lexaprova and Strands, Fiandre for the Verde Fantastico, and Patcraft for Inset, and Stone Source for Stone Triangles. And the NYC by Design winner for hard flooring goes to Concrete Collaborative. Now, artist Alexa was inspired by her travels to Morocco, and now we're inspired. A big hooray for all the winners and honorees. I can't hear you. Wait until you get your award. You're gonna love it. Thanks, Turf. Okay, are you ready for more? Let's go. And our next category is contract furniture. And we've got Dowfen for Vassalino, Davis Furniture for the JP Lounge, Kielauer for Pact Collection, Room, the meeting room, Studio TK for Fractals Nook. And the winner for contract furniture is, I'm feeling nooky, it's Studio TK for Fractals Nook. The perfect answer for COVID. Next, we have contract tables. And our honorees are Bernhardt Design for Mixed Table Collection, Prismatique Designs for Engaged, Scandiform through Scandinavian Spaces for Tenant, Bernhardt Design Playbook, and Studio TK for Rec. And the winner for contract tables goes to Bernhardt Design for the Mixed Table Collection. Check this out, offering 121 variations of the 7 different models. Oh, and by the way, this collection was designed by 22-year-old British designers, Claudia and Christian. I want one. Next, we have residential furniture. And our honorees are Blue Dot for Long Day, NZ Architects for Frumento Collection, Poltrona Frau for Plot. And the NYC by Design winner for Resi Furniture goes to Poltrona Frau for Plot. And those geometric patterns were created using plated leather designed by Italian-Danish duo Gamfratesi. Next, we have residential desks. And our honorees are Bowen Lou Studio for Pezzi, Human Scale for eFloat 1, Radner for the Triad Collection, and Zanota for Tucano. And the winner for residential desks is Zanota Tucano, sculptural and shapely with a trim top made of natural cowhide. Gorgeous. Next we have residential tables. And our honorees are Devani for Purity, Lee Broom for Tribeca, Powell & Bonnell for Ripple, Ralph Pucci for Artemis, Roche Bobois for Corral, Tom Faulkner for Memphis. This was a tough category. They were all gorgeous, but the winner for residential tables is Ralph Pucci for Artemis, cast and molded in plaster glass and named for the goddess of the hunt. Next we have storage. We all need it. I need it. Carl Hansen & Son for FK63 bookcase system. GD Arredamenti for Rosa Diventi. Living Devani through West Out East for Sailor. Moby Mobilia for Nikia. And the winner in the storage category is GD Arredamenti for Rosa Diventi. Now look at its focal point. It's the figure on a compass called the compass rose. Next we have outdoor. And our honorees are Brown Jordan Outdoor Kitchens 2021 Color Collection, Dometic Mobar 550, MMCT 1 for Elk. And our outdoor winner goes to Brown Jordan Outdoor Kitchens, designed by Daniel Germani with 13 new powder-coated colors with really cute names like Fiery Chili, a crisp mint, and bubbly cotton candy. Love that. Congrats, Daniel. Next is Outdoor Furniture Collection. And our honorees are Diabla for Grill, Gandia Blasco for Keppa, Paola Lenti for Elba, Sutherland Furniture for Plateau. And the winner for outdoor furniture is Sutherland Furniture for Plateau, designed by Benetti Kazurski. The joinery itself is a piece of art with exposed tenons and finger joints. Gorgeous, you guys. Next is Health and Wellness. And our honorees are Aduri for the Smart Meditation Cushion, Dauphin for Bossa Iron Cloud, PBA Health Program Hardware and Bathroom Accessories, and Dauphin for the Kempa Micro Silver Finish. And our Health and Wellness winner goes to Dauphin for Bossa Iron Cloud, which effectively eliminates viruses and bacteria, which is exactly what we need right now. So thanks, Dauphin. Next is Greater Good Environmental Impact. And our honorees are Coverings, etc. for Bioglass, Exformine for Altet, Kielauer for Swerve, and Scandiform through Scandinavian Spaces for Tinef. And the winner for Greater Good and Environmental Impact goes to Kielauer for Swerve. Now this is Kielauer's first carbon neutral office chair, and every Swerve sold will produce net zero carbon emissions. Thanks, Kielauer. Next, we have architectural lighting. And our honorees are And Light Pipeline, Artemity for La Linea, Floss for Infrastructure Episode 2, Ross Gardam for Arbor, Sonneman for Intervals Recessed Downlights. And the winner for architectural lighting goes to Artemity for La Linea by Big Architects. This is a flexible tube of light capable to freely twist and turn in space at will. Okay, our next category is sconce. Our honorees are Articulo Lighting for Loopy, Astro Lighting for Halftone Capsule Collection Volume 1, Hollis & Morris for Willow, Ingo Maurer through DDC for Mood Moon. Powell and Bonnell for Celeste. All stunners, but the winner in the sconce category goes to Mood Mood by Ingo Maurer through DDC. There's 14 different lighting moods and color gradients. And listen to this. This was designed by Sebastian Hepting, who has been with the Ingo Maurer team for 17 years and developed the idea during lockdown. Wow. Next, we have Pendant Fixtures. And our honorees are Beauvais for Valentina S24, Crossland and Emmons for Chrysalis, Fabian USA for Acoustica F58, Foscarini for Nui, and LZF Lamps for Dune. And the winner for Pendant Fixtures is LZF Lamps for Dune. Now this is a gorgeous single-piece hand-blown glass designed by Madrid-based NYC Studio. Next, Chandelier. And our honorees are Arteriors for Bend, David Weeks Studio for Treble Mobile, Estilus for Laverde, John Pomp Studios for Radiant Mobile, and Juniper for Flutes System. And the winner in Chandelier goes to David Weeks Studio for the Treble Mobile, featuring multiple tiers in different lengths, allowing for gentle movement. Love that. Okay, next we have floor and table lamps. And our honorees are Atelier Alain Louise for Nomadic, Lauren Silverman for Moonwalk, Pablo Designs for Belmont, and Mouge for Wavy. And the floor lamp winner is Lauren Silverman for Moonwalk, an interplay between gold, precious metals, and hand-blown glass. Oh my God, and there's another winner for table lamps. And the winner for table lamps is Whoosh for Wavy, modeled on a jellyfish from the Pacific Ocean. This wiggly wonder uses heat-resistant corn plastic. Amazing. Okay, a big congrats to all the winners and honorees. Are you dancing in your living room? Are you posting to social? We love New York and we love you. Okay, are you ready for more? Here we go. And our next category is contract seating. And our honorees are Blue Dot for Decade, Davis Furniture for Lightwork, Hayworth for Julie Collection, Technion North 56, and Zanota for Dan. And the winner in contract seating goes to Zanota for Dan, designed by Patrick Norgay. Dan lets you personalize your seat with custom printed graphics and text. Clever. Okay, next is contract sofa and lounge. And our honorees are Blah Station through Scandinavian Spaces, Big Talk, Carl Hansen and Son for Sideways, Hayworth for Lydia Modular Sofa Collection, Studio TK for Pedal, Rotate Collection for Artists. And the winner for contract sofa and lounge goes to Blah Station through Scandinavian Spaces for Big Talk, inspired by textile swatches and the fanning blocks of color created when sampling. It looks like that too, right? Okay, next category is residential seating. And our honorees are Blue Dot, Dibs, Misana for Carlo, Poro through West Out East for Rambi. And our winner in residential seating goes to Poro through West Out East for Rambi, a cocoon armchair which embraces the body while leaving you free to move. Gorgeous. Next, we have residential stools. And our honorees are Desede through DDC for the DS 5010, Powell and Bonnell for Mesa Swivel, Scram Furniture Company for Volata Capture, and Timber for Stack. And the winner for residential stools goes to Desede through DDC. It's foldable felt with a leather seat that is well padded on both sides, because I need that. And then you just pick it up and go. Next, residential lounge seating. And our honorees are Carl Hansen & Son for the Mama Bear chair, Minotti for Deikai, Roland Hill for sit, set, Zanotto for rider, and Minotti through DDC for Mattia. And the winner for residential lounge seating is Carl Hansen & Son for the Mama Bear chair. Yep, this was designed by Hans Wegner in 1954, but this sculptural silhouette looks just as good today. Congrats. Next we have residential sofa. And our honorees are Holly Hunt for Sumo, Lee Broom, White Street, Living Divani through West Out East for Sumo, and Radner for Bow. And the winner for residential sofa is Living Divani through West Out East for Sumo. Now this was designed by the undisputed king of furniture, Piero Lissoni, who carves out a slender and stunning silhouette. Congrats. Next we have outdoor seating. And our honorees are Dadon for Kidda, Janice at Sea for Chopsticks, Living Divani for Kasbah, Walters for Meacox. And the NYC by Design winner for outdoor seating is Dadon for Kidda. This was designed by Stephen Burks, and it's the first collection to be wrapped rather than woven in Dadon fiber. I kidda you not. Next, we have contract fabric, and our honorees are Arcom for Victoria and Paxton, Bernhard Textiles for Duality, Loom for Rare Earth, Pollock for Pollock and Liz Collins collection, and Wolf Gordon, Stoma, and Nakata. And the winner for contract fabric is Pollock for Pollock and Liz Collins. Now, it showcases the bold graphics that artist Liz is known for and uses Sunbrella contract yarns. Congrats. Next, we have residential fabric. And our honorees are Dadar for Ukiyo and Scarabeo. Perennials Fabric and Rugs for the Villa del Sol collection, Sarah Von Driel for the Fabrics collection, and Weitzner Limited for Coloring Book. And the winner for residential fabric goes to Weitzner for the Coloring Book. This fabric has full coverage embroidery interpreting an original watercolor brushstroke. Next is contract wall covering. And our honorees are Aztec for Botanica Magna, Jill Malik for the Dwellings collection, Maya Romanoff for Zen Garden, Aztec for Phantasm, and Wolf Gordon for Curated collection. And the winner is Wolf Gordon for the Curated collection, which allows interior designers to incorporate distinctive imagery from a select group of artists, and they'll love that. Next is Resi wall covering, and our honorees are Calico Wallpaper for Reverie, Carlisle and Company for Raja, Holly Hunt for Palermo, Juju Papers for Le Freak, and Sarah Von Driel for the Resilience collection. All gorgeous, but the winner for residential wall covering goes to Calico Wallpaper for Reverie, inspired by the playful spirit in her daughter's artwork. Kind of cool. Next, we have hard wall covering, and our honorees are Artistic Tile for Carolina Mirror, Country Floors for Wagara, Esmer Tile for Kudos, Giovanni Barbieri for Regoli collection, Nemo Tile and Stone for Aurora. And the winner for hard wall covering is Artistic Tile for Carolina Mirror, in tones of blue, green, and violet with bursts of metallic hues. Next is jewelry design. And this is in partnership with New York City Jewelry Week. Thank you. And our honorees are Annette Zay for the Ocean Crown Ring, Ayala Jewelry for Ayala Naftali Collection, Kat Merrick Jewelry for Strange Days, Harlan Jones for the Green Dagger Drop Earrings, Lori Weitzner for Clio Earrings, and the NYC by Design 2021 winner for jewelry design goes to Kat Merrick Jewelry for Strange Days. This was her poetic attempt to create order out of the anonymous days of quarantine. So listen to this. Each pigment-filled bead represents a day isolated and contained in glass. Amen to that. Okay, our next category is dimensional art. And our honorees are Brian Peters Studio for the Polsky screen, Samantha Sandbrook Art and Interiors for A Lighter Dark, Span Architects and Amunil for Flying Information. And the winner for dimensional art is Span Architects and Amunil for Flying Information, installed in the amenity space at the Zeckendorf Towers if you want to check it out. Okay, our next category is Made in the Boroughs. And we have Evan Z. Crane for the Memorial Bench, made in Brooklyn. Joseph C. Studio C Desk, made in Queens. Otra by Zimmerman Workshop, cursive floor mirror, made in Brooklyn. And Ramona Albert Design, the Flower Collection, made in Brooklyn. And our 2021 Made in the Boroughs winner is Joseph C. Studio for the C Desk in Queens. This is a stunning mix of Korean traditional architecture with mid-century modern. And by the way, who doesn't need a desk like this these days? I do. Next is our emerging independent product designers. And our honorees are Andrea Clare Studio for the Hilbers and the McTavish. We have Björk Balasager for Together and Apart. Cassius Castings for Concrete Furniture Collection. And Christina Z. Antonio for Helios. And our Emerging or Independent Product Designer Award goes to Christina Z. Antonio for Helios. This is furniture designer Christina's first foray into lighting with the thoughtful approach that light promotes healing and wellness. Well, it does, and these are gorgeous. Okay, we're getting to our last categories before the students. We have iconic products. Here we go. Andre World for the Nuez Lounge Bio. Carl Hansen and Son for the Mama Bear Chair. Eichen for Fluffy. And LaFoy Brooks for Exo Cross Handle. And the winner for iconic products is Andre World for the Nuez Lounge Bio. So check this out. Originally a lounge chair collection by Patricia Urquiola, now relaunched with a carbon footprint equivalent to wood, where the parts are 100% recyclable. Congrats. And now we have People's Choice. And our honorees are Bolon for the Emerge collection, Carvar for Custom Glass and Hardware Systems collection, David Weeks Studio for Treble Mobile, and Floss Coordinates, and Techno International for the WQ, and Turf Design for Folded Tiles collection. And the 2021 People's Choice Award goes to Floss for Coordinates. And you can find this large-scale light sculpture in the main dining room of New York's historic Four Seasons restaurant when it relocated. Wow. Okay, everybody, so as a reminder, we'll reach out to the winners with details this week. Now, don't forget, you got to be posting your awards photos and tag us, hashtag NYC by Design Awards, hashtag Turf Design, hashtag the Cindygram, why don't you? And for our honorees, you'll get access to our NYC by Design Awards seals to use across all social channels. Congrats, everybody. A big congrats. We love you and we love New York. Next, we have the student category, which is always eye-opening. And this group of amazing minds were so thoughtful in solving problems for such a wide range of issues you're going to see. All right, so what we're about to show you are all the winners. Are you ready? First, a huge thanks to our good friends at Williams-Sonoma Inc. Business to Business and all their wonderful brands, you see them there, who always jump at the chance to support any student initiatives with us. We love you guys. All right, here we go. Here are the winners. Our first winner is Zilan Chen from Mixo Suit Home Rehabilitation System. He's from Pratt. Now, this is a lower body exoskeleton rehab system for children with cerebral palsy, focusing on knee and ankle foot training. It plays the role of remote therapist for the families of children who cannot access a therapist. So brilliant, right? We loved Zilan's submission so much, we gave him another award. Here it is, for Kenny. Now, this one was in honor of his late dog. So he designed this lamp to remember his days with Kenny, who lit up his life. I know, right? It's crazy. Zilan, you are something else. Our next winner is Chun Shu Shi for Flow, featuring a new bamboo joint structure. This is an accomplished piece where the design carries the craftsmanship by exposing materials and the details. Lovely. Also from Pratt, and thanks Pratt for all these amazing students, we have Aryaman Jiri Gundala. This is the Perforated Lamp, and it's inspired by the Bauhaus cut paper project. The process was led by the lighting effect created by the perfs and the hole patterns. And our next winner is Regina Reyes from the School of Visual Arts for Isla Airflow Manipulation Device. This device is used to prevent airflow from the room where a sick person is and keep it from the rest of the house. So smart. And our next winner is Yuxi Milkolu for Food and Lust. Now, her box set was designed as a way to destigmatize sex, allowing couples to have comfortable and easier communication about sexual activity. And look at that design, so polished. And our next winner is Xiaohan Mao from SVA for Sense. Now, this is a lamp that's a visual indicator of verbal abuse. A warm tone indicates that no abusive words have been detected, while abusive words turn the lighting into a cool tone. Powerful, right? Our next winner is Anna Rindos for Blossom Bench. And this was inspired by Anna's makeshift Zoom setup. Provides both seating and an inspiring Zoom backdrop. How cool is that? And our next winner is Pietro Cantini for the Sub line. Now, Pietro designed new transportation routes for cyclists and pedestrians in New York City, using abandoned subterranean spaces. And our next winners are Cynthia, Ellen, and Alexis from Pratt Institute for the Plantoval. This talented team rethought the design of high school bathrooms to promote more positive body images. It diverts students' fixation on their own bodies by altering the location of the mirrors and replacing mirrors with plants. So how clever are these students, honestly? And our next winner is Singh Wang from Pratt Institute for the Blend Chair, a clear chair that seamlessly blends into the surroundings. And it's made from 100% recyclable acrylic, and it's super lightweight, so you can carry it around. And our last winner is Hang Yuan for Cohen from SVA. Cohen is an interactive device for families apart to make a tight connection across both distance and language. The user drags the circle line to customize the symbols to deliver different emotions to each other, like I miss home or I love you. The thoughtfulness of these students was so touching. Well, we all love you. We love design. A huge thanks and a bigger hug to all the winners and honorees, and to the real star of the show, our beloved New York City, who shines in all her glory. Thank you all. Thank you for submitting. Thank you for joining us, and go forth and design.
My name is Jean Lee.
And I'm Dylan Davis, and we are Ladies and Gentlemen Studio, and we are here in Red Hook, Brooklyn. We originally met in school. We were at the University of Washington studying industrial design. We really sort of realized there was a real compatibility in our sensibilities and our working styles.
We're really drawn to the Red Hook creative community here. There's a lot of artists and designers and fabricators and architects. Just feel that we could get a lot of different ideas or collaborations done. We even get some of the glass parts made down the block. Also, every once in a while, we'll get together on a sunny day and just do a picnic.
Ladies and Gentlemen is an interdisciplinary design studio focused on the idea of being explorative in the discipline of design. So within that, we make a lot of products, but we also explore a lot of installations and collaborations and different sorts of community building around the practice of design. We're constantly trying new things that all build on each other in sort of indirect ways.
The distinguishing factor of our studio and our work is that there's this sort of unexpected playfulness, but simple yet refined. When people come into our studio, they could expect to see this feeling of this ladies and gentlemen world of all these artifacts, findings, and material collections that really is part of our design process.
We'd like to put a lot of finished work and prototypes within this space, so there's a big mix of things that are sort of done in their final state and things that were maybe early versions of our current product.
We have a lot of open shelves, as you could see, and essentially our 3D inspiration board.
Our studio's typical client is architects and designers. We sell a lot of lighting products. In an ideal scenario, we're having this dialogue with these designers, and it's almost a collaboration in itself with our customers.
People ask us what our style is, but it's less of a style, it's more of approach of how we treat materials in a very respectful and thoughtful way.
I'm Diana Buds, Senior Story Producer for Curbed, guest hosting for NYC by Design. And I'm joined here today with Crystal Rivera, Director of Community Engagement at Industry City, Dylan Davis, the co-founder of Ladies and Gentlemen Studio, and Kelly Valletta, the co-executive director of the Textile Arts Center. We're talking today about what it means to run a design studio or a design-oriented organization in South Brooklyn. And so I wanted to pass it off to my panelists to hear a little bit about their background and their work. And Dylan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, hi, nice to meet everyone. So Ladies and Gentlemen Studio is a joint effort between myself and my partner, Jean Lee. We started over 10 years ago in Seattle, and we're product designers by training, but we sort of dabble in a bunch of different multidisciplinary elements, and we produce collections of lighting and also design spaces and a wide variety of kind of explorative things as well. We're currently based in Red Hook. We moved to New York about 6 years ago, so Red Hook is now our home.
And Kelly.
Representing Textile Arts Center. I'm the co-executive director, co-founder. Tech is a mission-driven business. We are a school for learning all things textiles with artist residency programs, youth programming, and a lot of collaborative community projects.
Crystal, I'd love to hear a little about Industry City.
Yeah, so I'm Crystal Rivera. I'm Director of Community Engagement at Industry City. I've personally been here since the development has started its repositioning. So I'd say that's about 2013. Industry City itself is a 6 million square foot commercial industrial property. It's massive. It's the largest privately owned commercial industrial property in New York. So in South Brooklyn, it's a pretty big anchor on the waterfront. It has been a hub of the working waterfront historically. As part of the repositioning, there's a huge focus on design. If you've ever been here, or if you haven't been here, you can see behind me all the images of how we integrate design into every experience. And when you're on campus, from the wayfinding to the way it's laid out to the tenancies we have, which are consumer facing and retail, as well as upper floor tenancies, which are private offices that are home to businesses like Countin and Tout, to West Elm Studios, and smaller, vintage retail design as well. So for us, design's integrated into everything. And a big part of Industry City overall, outside of being a place where people come to work every day, is also how we engage in the broader community of South Brooklyn. So we've done a lot of intentional integration with schools and other programs, from Cooper Hewitt to high schools in the neighborhood, to really think about how do you provide equity and really pathways and pipelines into the design world that can sometimes feel a little amorphous to people who don't understand it or don't get exposed to it, and create more opportunity for young people to come in and be part of what I think will be a big part of the future as well in design.
Yeah, you touched on a few, different points in what you're describing about Industry City and South Brooklyn in general. That, while it has a really long history in industry and design, that there is kind of this, 21st century, industry that's happening now. And I'd love to hear a little about, how being in this particular part of the city impacts your work. And Dylan, perhaps you might be able to share a little about, the reasons for moving to Red Hook and, how that changed your practice from when you were in Seattle.
Yeah, in starting our studio in Seattle, it was a great place. We started it from our garage. We have like classic garage origin story. And, it started off in this idea of just being explorative in design as a discipline. So we gave ourselves like lots of time, and that location gave us lots of space to do that, to be explorative and not have this sort of like pressures of this environment where things are just very, kind of intense and almost scripted due to that sort of activity. So when we were moving to New York, we were looking for some of that activity, but also still a spot where there could be that space for, headspace, physical space, and just creative space to sort of be us and like move at a pace that's comfortable for us. And so Red Hook always kind of stuck out in our heads as this kind of perfect place that like had
some of the comforts of home in terms of that space, and was still sort of deeply embedded in New York. And also just having all the creative people and industry right near us there, like that's just kind of this incredible combination of things that makes it really ideal for the way that we work.
Cool. And Kelly, I'd love to hear a little about your pocket of Gowanus and decision to have a textile art center there, and why that was a place that you wanted to create your business.
Yeah. So while the location was one of our other co-founders' decision, and I came on early on, it couldn't have been a better location. Over the past 11 or so years that we've been here, the neighborhood has changed drastically. And so, that conversation too of equity that you were saying is something that we are mindful as our neighborhood changes kind of significantly. And so just being involved in the community, and it's such an active artist community in Gowanus, that it's very exciting to participate in. It's really a hub in itself.
What might you say is something that it kind of sets working in this area and this community apart from other areas of Brooklyn?
Well, it is the community, and I think also the greater, there's just some really lovely arts organizations, Arts Gowanus, and such as NYCxDESIGN Design that come and highlight different artists in that neighborhood. We have a huge every year Gowanus Open Studios, which is something they've been doing it for maybe over 5 years now, I want to say. Such an awesome opportunity to get to know everybody in the neighborhood, and I think a lot of connections too are made during those times. And for us being able to have all of our exciting equipment too, and people at work just on our ground floor level, open windows that so many people just passing by get to participate also, and take it upon themselves just to walk on in too. So there's just so many artists and people interested in the arts and supporting the arts. We have also gallery space, and we have exhibitions from time to time. It's a bit of a pop-up gallery space within our space. And so, yeah, we have lots of opportunities to engage with the broader community, aside from people who just want to come in and work on their textile work.
Cool.
So very exciting.
I love the big windows and the fact that you can kind of see people working on those really incredible looms. If you're
and you'll hear passersby, oh, those are looms.
And Crystal, I mean, I think like Industry City is kind of like such a fascinating place, just because of its decades long history and the revival recently, and kind of thinking of the change of industry in the city generally, from kind of like heavy industry to kind of like smaller scale, small businesses, and the way that over the past few years you've kind of been creating a community within a community there. So I'd love to hear a little about how Industry City is thinking of its place in Sunset Park, which is a neighborhood that is also undergoing a lot of change generally.
Yeah, and I'd say, Industry City itself, we're home to over 500 businesses, many of which are small businesses, and many of which fall in design. And I mean, when we talk about design, we always talk about it super broadly. We include artists in that definition as well. For us, I think Sunset Park is a special place to exist. I mean, the reality is, to your point, like these buildings were built by Irving T. Bush in like the late 1800s. So to a certain extent, they've been here a very long time, right? And so the thing that makes it unique, especially when you think about other kind of industrial sites in Brooklyn, such as the Navy Yard, right? Like there's not as much of a like robust residential community abutting those properties. Like it's a bit of a different layout. And so here in Sunset Park, you have like right across 3rd Avenue, there is a huge neighborhood, right? And it kind of goes from like a Park Slope to Sunset Park to Bay Ridge. And I think that makes it unique and very special. Sunset Park itself is home to a large immigrant population of Latinos and also of an Asian community. And a lot of what's interesting over the years that I think has been a key part of like what we've focused on in terms of our engagement with the external community, not just internal, is that the history of immigrants has really been a lot about entrepreneurial and like, really design aesthetic in some ways, right? And so how does that get integrated into what we're doing? And so we've leveraged a lot of the opportunities that we do have with our design week, which we've partnered with NYC by Design in the past, and Wanted Design is one of our tenants, and they've curated Industry City Design Festival with us, gosh, for the past, I want to say like 7 or 8 years. It's been a while. And every year, especially during that time, we've done a lot of partnerships to integrate what's happening in Sunset Park into what's happening at Industry City, because we are one neighborhood, right? So I think that's what is a real powerful thing. And also, at times can have its challenges as well. But in addition to our design festival, we also internally, right, have built a community to the point you were making. And a lot of that is around the placemaking of Industry City, right? Our upper floors, we have tenancies, we have 500 businesses, right? And so half of those are about small businesses that might have 1,000 to 2,500 square feet, 10 employees to 50 employees. And the thing that makes it so amazing is that on one floor, you can have a textile maker, right? Or you could have someone doing graphic design, or someone manufacturing some kind of food product like pickles, right? And they're all on the same floor, and they're able to create an ecosystem that is natural and organic, as opposed to being forced into some kind of networking or meeting each other. Really, the value add of what we find with our tenants is that intangible quality of like, you come here and it feels like there's a community that you can easily plug into. And for us, that's been a huge part of what we think is our success, but also how we really think about the integration of industries as they do evolve, and how that connects with design in general, because really in every facet of that, there is an element of design.
Yeah, it's super interesting that, there is so much there. I mean, I think like the first time I went to Industry City was for an NYC by Design Wanted Design exhibition. And then at that time there were like, commissary kitchens essentially for businesses. Right. And now you can go and there's, tons and tons of different types of food and whatnot. And it's just fascinating to see how that's all kind of grown over the past few years.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Dylan, you mentioned something about, kind of being in this area where, you are close to, fabricators, you're close to, other people in design. And I'm wondering if you might be able to walk us through, kind of like the design and the development of a recent piece that you feel is very emblematic of, being in Red Hook and, kind of having access to all those different things.
In some instances, they've become very embedded. So a recent light that we designed a whole collection of fixtures is derived from being introduced to this glass fabricator who's been in Red Hook for 30 years. They're on the Red Hook waterfront. And they have these processes of bending glass, and we sort of, they have like a window front, and you can kind of like see in and like have that little glimpse of like what might be going on in there. And so at a certain point in our wanderings in the neighborhood, we walked in and struck up a conversation, and we're just kind of fascinated by the pieces they had out. It's owned by an artist, and they've been bending glass for both like restoration as well as art, as well as lighting. And we just kind of became fascinated with the process, and like walked away with a bunch of samples, and we're like, all right, we'll be back sometime. And fast forward like a couple years, like it kind of takes a while for these like ideas to percolate. Those samples were sitting on our shelves looking pretty and just like begging to be created into something. And we were actually in, speaking of like South Brooklyn kind of power, we were in this business development class that was hosted at Industry City by the I want to butcher the organization, but what's that?
Southwest Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's become this class became this sort of amazing resource for our design related industries, but we're also in one of our cohorts in the class was these glass fabricators. So we got to know them intimately, know the inner workings of each other's businesses even. And it's like, okay, we have to work together. And it like sort of rekindled this interest in each other. And so we created this series in collaboration with them. And, you know, it's sort of like taking this process of glass and this experiments we've been doing with sheet materials and sort of like merging the two together in this really sort of beautiful celebration of the process that I hope is like really apparent in the end product too, that people can kind of get a sense of that wonderment that we experienced from discovering this material and process.
Very cool. It's kind of like this big city, small town, you know, sensibility where you could, you know,
Yeah.
just be really curious about someone and
Yeah.
work on your walking around and then end up kind of meeting them again in a different context. And what was the name of the glass studio?
The glass studio is Flickinger Glasswork. Yeah, so yeah, they're right on the Red Hook waterfront, and yeah, they're great people, and we really enjoy working with them.
Awesome. And Kelly, I'd love to hear a little about you know, the different ways that you're thinking about the community in Gowanus, since you do have you know, something for everyone, it seems, from, you know, classes where kids can learn how to do just very simple weavings and, you know, everything to, you know, something where a, you know, more experienced artist could, you know, rent a loom for a few weeks. So I'd love to hear a little about, you know, how you're thinking about serving people in Gowanus, and, you know, what that actually looks like in practice.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a bit non-hierarchical because we have some very advanced 8-year-olds doing incredible weaving. So, you know, we also, like, a lot of our youth classes are mixed ages, and there's a lot of helping each other move forward. You know, maybe this younger person has the skills that this older person has. It doesn't matter. They're going to come together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a huge part of like is this something for everyone that you're talking about? A huge part of like why I think tech is so successful in getting out there to go to all these places and do all these. We're in Randall's Island. We're in, you know, we're in the Bronx. We're going to Williamsburg for design. We're going to Industry City because we're such a small team and we're able to be quite nimble, and our team is so passionate. We almost don't turn down any requests for public outreach. Whether they're paid or not, we want to be out there. And so we'll make the schlep in a Uber or on the subway with a vat of, you know, indigo dye, and we'll get out there. So we do a bit of our own outreach, but I'd say a majority is people reaching out to us saying, we want to get involved, and we want you to come here because it's too hard for folks in our community, or, you know, whenever, when it's a longer distance, it's too far to get all those folks here. So come to us. And I think it's really such a nice way to make connections and friendships all around the city. So
yeah, do you have like instances where there was an 8-year-old who kind of started in classes there and then like kind of just over like the last few years has continued to like grow, and you can see their work change over that period of time?
So when I started at Tech, I was the youth programs director, and I have students that I had when they were 8 who are, you know, 18, 19 now, and co-teaching classes. They come to volunteer at TAC or work over the summer and things like that. And it's really my dream that one day one of our youth, our young makers applies for our artist in residency. That's kind of the longevity and the kind of close, reciprocal kind of cycle that we're hoping for.
Very cool. And I think that, what's really interesting about, one of the things that's been interesting about this last year is that, even though, like New York is a city of neighborhoods in a way that, with the pandemic, I think everyone has kind of been, staying closer to home and staying, within their own area a little bit more. And I'm wondering how this past year has impacted your programming and the way that you think about your communities.
This year's been insane for everyone. We turned our entire programming into online programming, which was, with like a month turnaround. It was very insane and thankfully very successful. And we have like a lot of different price points for people to enter and some free programming online. And what nice things is we were able to have a few outdoor events. In December we had a market outdoors. We're having a little trunk show outdoors coming up soon. And our events are not what they were when 50, 100, whatever people coming by. It's a lot more intimate, but just a chance to actually see people in person. But the connections that we've been able to make online too, being able to reach out with friends who are in different places, or experts who we never would have been able to put them up in New York to have them come teach here or something like that. As well as just expanding our student network. It's not just New York City or people who can come here, but it's international, the folks who can take our classes now. And that's super exciting to us.
Yeah, it's interesting in a way that even though like we're all kind of staying at home, like the world somehow becomes a little bit more open just because everyone's moving online in that sense.
Definitely paying attention to the silver linings right now.
And Crystal, how about for Industry City?
So similarly, I mean, it's been a rough year for everyone. I can echo that. And when the pandemic started, obviously everything went virtual. And yes, the silver lining to that is that your impact is so much broader because it's so much more accessible, virtually to anyone, anywhere, which is amazing. And we were eager, though, to get back to what we do well, which is the physical infrastructure, right? Like coming here and experiencing everything that's happening. So I think we've been very careful, but also, trying to be as forward thinking as possible. So in August, we reopened with outdoor programming that was working with one of our tenants that has a vintage fashion market. And, to me, very much design. Everything there is incredibly beautiful, but he operates these trunk shows similar to what you're talking about. And he was able to bring small businesses. I mean, this is part of what the other side of the pandemic, right? Especially from our end, is that there were many small businesses that participated in these flea markets and trade shows and all those things that did nothing for 6, 7, 8 months. And so to us, it wasn't only how do we give back to the communities, because as I mentioned, residential all around here. So people were working from home and they were coming here because it was a place to be that felt safe. So how do we do programming to be responsive, but also how do we really think about our value to the businesses that are suffering all over? So being able to host markets gave people the opportunity outside in open air, in tented, courtyards to be able to offer programming, but also, shopping experiences and business for some of these small businesses that hadn't done anything for a long time. And as we've transitioned, I mean, over the past from December and similarly, we continue to do markets, we continue to host programming, and into summer where we anticipated whether there would be vaccines or whether there wouldn't, we can operate in this world in a way that's safe. And so we've moved ahead. We have markets every weekend. We have design pop-ups. Our retailers are offering strolls of design focused programming on the weekends, things for families, live music. So for us, it's obviously not what it was pre-COVID and everything's very safe, but we're not afraid to move forward because we have to, right? What is the other choice?
And Dylan, I'm curious about, kind of the ways in which you and, your community have kind of been responding this past year. I know that for example, Ladies and Gentlemen Studio is very involved in design for ATL and kind of, thinking about, the ways in which you can kind of be there for your community in the ways that you can.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that it really highlighted to us the need to look outside. Well, I mean, there's the whole need to like keep our businesses going. So there's that all of those challenges. There's also moments where things were incredibly busy due to people, paying attention to their homes and finally doing those projects for themselves and for their homes that are, meaningful to them. So a lot of interior designers and like furnishing designers have been quite busy at times. There's also been this sort of like pressing need to think about design outside of commercial realms, and the Design for ATL was a program that we started with several other friends of ours in the AAPI community, and it just kind of became this really effective fundraising for the victims of the Atlanta shootings, and really sort of galvanized everyone in the community around how can we use what we make to raise awareness around an issue, and really it was amazing how much momentum was gathered around designers who are willing to really want to help spread the word and like contribute work and just like do something around around helping bigger causes.
Yeah, it's incredible to see what can happen with a strong community. And we're kind of coming up on the end of our time, and I do have like one last question, which is maybe like something that each of you could go over briefly, but how do you define South Brooklyn design? And Kelly, I want to start with you.
The design process is something that I think that we play a hand in facilitating, and also that folks get a lot out of interacting through Textile Arts Center, because there's so much to learn about the design process and collaboration and working with others before you can even go ahead and go to the design and do that thing, that wonderful idea that you maybe need to collaborate or get input or reach out to somebody to fabricate. So I think like all of these things are really what makes Southwest Brooklyn design really exciting, and the way that TAC can support that really exciting for us.
And Crystal?
To me, it's essentially looking back at the history of the waterfront and what's been here, from like Topps baseball cards that were manufactured here years ago. Like those things all have such an element of art and design that have been here forever. I mean, the architecture, right, and of these buildings and the infrastructure itself, to me, really speaks to that. You have, Greenwood Cemetery over here as well, which is all just this incredible experience of like beautiful original architecture. So to me, it's like this kind of full circle of what was originally here and maybe wasn't traditionally thought of in a design perspective, and the neighborhood that's been here with its generations of immigrants, right, that have contributed to that. So to me, it's like, it's not this, created kind of false sense of what design is. It's this thing that's been here forever, is being revisited, and will be here. The best part to me about it is we'll be here, hopefully, well past all of our lifetimes, right?
Dylan, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things. I think that the like kind of amount of space that that our location kind of gives us as creatives, it allows people to be sort of thoughtfully themselves. And there's just such a huge variety around like the work that people are doing, and it feels like people can really like authentically do their thing, which I think is really valuable. And then at the same time, not everyone, we're not in silos either. There's this like resourcefulness around working with each other and interacting with each other.
Well, thank you very much, Dylan, Kelly, and Crystal, for talking to us about your work and about Southwest Brooklyn. Thank you again for joining us on this panel about design in South Brooklyn for NYC by Design, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Welcome to our New York City Design Leader Conversations. Today's conversation is one of 6 taking place as part of Design Days, a 6-day-long festival that celebrates New York City as a creative capital of design. Today will be focused on digital and tech design, the ecosystem of technology in New York City, and its power to create opportunities right across the city and impact lives for the better across all the city's boroughs. My name is Alyssa Black, and I'm the Executive Director of NYC by Design, tuning in today from Brooklyn, New York. NYC by Design is a newly minted nonprofit organization, but we have been around since 2013, creating opportunities for all of New York City's design professions, people, events, and industries. NYC by Design represents the design community of New York in its broadest sense, from all of the design professions across architects, interior designers, graphic, fashion, tech, and digital designers, and also all of our design adjacent industries such as your makers, manufacturers, suppliers, design districts, design events, and design leaning cultural and academic institutions. NYC by Design has a vibrant year-round program where we seek to do 3 things. First of all, we seek to educate and inspire about design and spotlight New York's immense design talent. Secondly, we're interested in creating opportunity and particularly equitable opportunity for all of New York City's design sector. And thirdly, we're interested in inspiring our young adults to become the city's designers of tomorrow. Today, I'm delighted to welcome 2 of New York City's leaders in the digital and tech space. They've been doing amazing work in the city, bringing their expansive consensus and community building skills to bear in solidifying and expanding New York as a creative and technology hub, and their forceful advocacy to creating equitable opportunities across all the different boroughs of the city. Welcome to Clayton Banks, who is the co-founder and CEO of Silicon Harlem, whose mission is to transform Harlem into a technology and innovation hub. Clayton works towards digital equity and programs to build the pipeline of talent in New York City's technology sector. Welcome also to Julie Samuels, who's the founder and executive director of Tech NYC, which is a coalition of 800 tech companies and investors who are working to make sure that New York City is the best place to build and grow technology companies, and to ensure a robust and inclusive technology ecosystem for New York City. Welcome to Clayton, and welcome to you, Julie. I'd like to start off with asking you, Clayton and Julie, about the work of your organizations and New York City's current status as a digital and technology hub. Julie, can you tell us about the work of Tech NYC and why it's important for New York City?
Sure. So Tech NYC, of course, as you know, kind of represents the broader tech sector. The businesses, the large employers, the small startups, the investors, you know, more on the kind of for-profit side of the house. And we think that this is a crucial part of the city's recovery. You know, there can be no doubt. I don't need to point to data or to research to tell you that tech jobs are the jobs of the future. And it is in our city's best interest to ensure that those jobs are here. And then on top of that, of course, and what we spend a lot of time on at Tech NYC is how do we ensure that New Yorkers are getting the right skills, are getting the right training, are meeting the right people. And Clayton is an amazing partner. Silicon Harlem, you know, is more broadly an amazing partner in getting us closer to that, to ensure that all of these jobs are here and that New Yorkers have access to them. And the idea, of course, and it's not so simple, but the idea, of course, is that all boats will rise and the economy will get back humming.
And Clayton, over to you. Can you tell us a little bit about the work of Silicon Harlem and why it's important for New York City right now?
Well, thank you for having me. And it's really exciting to talk with you because when we can combine technology with art and creativity, there's nothing better than New York City when it comes to that. And the fact that I get to be on a panel with Julie Samuels, I mean, that's like she is the one. She's the one. So she's my sister, and I appreciate it. We were just together a little while ago with Andrew Yang at my office, so it's just interesting to be on here with you. Silicon Harlem is really focused on, 3 or 4 things. One of them is we certainly believe, and people have heard me say this for years, everyone needs a connection. And, it was in January 2020 when we had our last meetup before the pandemic, right? So our last meetup was January 23rd of 2020, and it featured the CTO of New York City, John Paul Farmer, and it was the unveiling for the very first public time of what's called the Internet Master Plan. And I say that because normally that doesn't happen in Uptown. Normally we're like last to hear about something. As for us to be exposed to the Internet Master Plan at the very beginning, I mean, fresh off the press, it was very, very motivating. And we had 200 or some odd people in the meetup. And what was interesting, I always give predictions every year of what would happen in the coming year. And this is January of 2020. And I said, our motto has always been, everyone deserves a connection. And on that night, it's completely moralized. I said, everyone's gonna need a connection. That's what I said. I said, you know what? I'm changing it from deserve to need. And 30 days later, everybody needed a connection. So it was wild. So one of the things we really focus on is making sure everybody gets a connection. The second thing is we really focus on education. It turns out that this isn't a matter of intelligence when we look at disparities or some of the struggles we have when people don't have connectivity, or to Julie's point, being prepared for jobs and these type of things. It's not when I worked with President Clinton, say all the time that intelligence is distributed everywhere evenly, but access and exposure is not. And that's sort of our role, is to really make sure that we provide as much access and exposure to the communities we serve in, to provide people with a path, and they can take it from there themselves. It's not an issue of intelligence. The third thing we love doing is research. So we've done a lot of research, and primarily with universities. A lot of people don't realize in Harlem, there's 14 colleges. That's more than some states in this country, right? So there's 14 colleges, and 2 of them arguably Ivy Leagues between Columbia and Barnard. So we do a lot of research with these universities. We have the only test bed that's looking at advanced wireless. So we use all of that stuff to create that tech hub that you mentioned in the intro. It is truly, Silicon Harlem has been very focused on not only celebrating the arts and the food and the music that Harlem has been traditionally known for, but now we're also known for technology. We've attracted billion-dollar companies into Upper Manhattan, like a WeWork. It sounds silly, but there's so many WeWorks all over New York City, but there's only one in Harlem. We had to beg them to come up there. So it's great to see the tech hub come together. We got incubators, we got investments starting to happen, good things are happening, and that helps all of the various parts of a community, including the arts.
Yeah, that sounds like incredible momentum. At NYC by Design, we're very interested in speaking to emerging designers and our designers of tomorrow, the young adults, for them to understand what opportunities there are in design as they think about their future careers. And in this session, we're particularly focused on digital and tech design. I'm wondering for the 2 of you, and I'll ask you to respond first, Julie, what are the opportunities in the city as you see it for digital and tech designers, and how might that be changing over time?
Well, I'm actually going to just take a step back for a second and talk about why I'm so bullish about tech in New York City. And then I'll narrow down and talk a bit more about as it applies particularly to design. But if you take a second and think about kind of what the generation of tech companies we're in right now, think about it in generations. There was the first generation of tech companies that was a few decades ago, super wonky, super technical, when most people we knew were not paying any attention. And a lot of that happened in the Valley and in DC primarily. After that, you had the kind of next big generation, the next big push, companies that we think of as the application layer of the internet. That's Google, that's Facebook, that's Amazon. That's how people, like I assume most of us, myself, I'm assuming you guys, actually use the internet, right? How we get online. Those companies all came out of the West Coast. And I would argue they never could have gotten started here. Too much competition, too much, government would have kind of gotten involved, a lot of regulation. And instead, no one was really honestly paying attention. No one was taking those companies seriously. And then they got huge and then everyone had to take them seriously. Obviously, those days are done. Clearly, everyone is paying attention to internet companies, to technology companies, competitors, investors, government, you name it. So, now what's next? In that new kind of framework, what's next? And I would argue that what's next are these companies that are going to exist, not as that like pure technical application layer, but companies that exist in existing, or I would say companies that grow in existing sectors. So health tech, education tech, real estate tech, obviously fintech, advertising, media tech, you name it, whatever tech, that's where the green space is. That's where the next generation of huge companies are. And I am so convinced that all of, that whole generation of companies is going to happen right here in New York. Because not only do we have the technical expertise now, which we didn't always really have here at scale, but we do, but we have the subject matter expertise. We have obviously the financial means to grow these companies locally. And I think you're really just going to start seeing them build upon each other. And I think that design, the artistic field, the design field is like ripe for this. New York is such an amazing city full of creative people. It is full of the most interesting and creative people, I've ever known. And I think a lot of times, I'll just quickly kind of take a little side kind of anecdote here. The design school, the D school at Stanford, is where a lot of the thinking around UI design, around design theory on the internet and on apps kind of grew out of. And I spent some time in San Francisco, and I spent some time in the Valley, and like I cannot believe that you go to the campus of Stanford and it's beautiful. It's beautiful weather, but it is not exactly like I don't know, New York is so much more full of creative, interesting energy. Like this all can and should be happening right here, and is happening right here. But I think, to take this full circle now, like I have no doubt that I am so bullish on the creative sector here in New York, the traditional creative sectors, kind of integrating more closely with the tech sector as the tech sector becomes more mature here too. And every company is looking for designers. Every tech firm I know is looking for design help. And increasingly they're looking for it here and not on the West Coast.
And how about you, Clayton? What opportunities do you see for the digital and tech designers in the city?
Well, I'm excited as well. And, when I look at, particularly, a lot of my focus is in Upper Manhattan, but if you look across New York City, I've been all over the world in some of the greatest cities that anyone would love to live in. When you look back at New York, I think it must be, it's art in and of itself as a city. There's nothing but beautiful creativity, whether it's graffiti or going to an art location. It is just a campus of beautiful creativity and just imagination, right? So what I'd like to bridge though is that we talk about tech jobs and tech opportunities. It turns out that everyone's going to be in technology. This is not like no, I'm talking about artists, musicians, even my sanitation guys that come by and pick up the garbage, tech guys, right? They now start to look at, how many cans are out, how full are they? They get that data back to the company, it becomes much more efficient. So every job is a tech job. That's good news because that will give even more opportunities. It won't require a certain level of credential on a lot of these jobs. And that's where the art community should excel, especially after 2020. If you look at it as a history repeating of itself, the pandemic, the Spanish flu, some of the best creativity came out of that. In fact, there was like medical innovation, transportation innovation. That's when insulin came around for diabetes. I mean, all types of cool creativity came out of it, not only just from a business perspective, but certainly museums and art places. And we're seeing it now where the art community has had to transition into the tech area and go, wait a minute, maybe we can create that I would normally perhaps on a canvas, turn it into a virtual display. And so we're seeing a big lift in virtual reality, for example. We're seeing a big lift, and I'll talk about some future type of art opportunities, one of them being spatial computing. And so there's lots of things. Some of it may sound a little overly techy, but I'm noticing that the creative community is embracing it. I mean, I've been in the business for a long time, and I used to say all the time, on any project that I get going on, I always start with a design. It isn't always the business model. If I have a great creative person, the whole game can change. So the opportunity right now, to be honest with you, is the greatest moment in a lot of our lives for creativity. Look at all the social justice creativity that's come out of some of the things that have been revealed through social justice. If you look at the women's movement, the Me Too movement, all that stuff was creative. We're visual people in a lot of ways. So to see that stuff, it actually connects with you. So I think this is one of those. And again, if we talk about future jobs, I will tell those who are interested from a creative perspective, some great opportunities that are ahead of us.
I'm so glad to hear you talk about all of the amazing creative stuff that's already happening, both in types of technology and also in these political moments and these historical moments we're living in. And there's another thing that I love about the tech community in New York, the broader tech community, that is frankly different than some other tech communities I've been a part of. And it's that the people I know who work in tech in New York are New Yorkers first. They're not tech people first. There are people who live in New York who often happen to work in tech, and they have friends who work on Wall Street and friends who work at law firms and friends who are artists and friends who are teachers. And it's New York. Like, we all are together all the time in a way that, and we're all hopefully back on public transit soon, and we're all walking on all the same streets all the time. And you can't separate those things here. It just doesn't work that way. And that kind of like all those collisions, all those moments along the way is key to what makes New York so special, what makes New York unique. And those are the same things, those interactions, the tech community and the arts community and all of these pieces that Clayton's talking about, plus a bazillion more, that comes together. And that's the opportunity here.
Yeah, there's definitely a theme emerging in this conversation around opportunity and communities coming together. And in the work of both of your organizations, they seem to also be key elements. Both of you have really talked about the role that technology and digital opportunity can play in making urban places and cities better. And you've both talked about leveraging the entire ecosystem of New York City to get there. So I'm wondering if you both comment on, and Clayton, if you would go first, the partnerships that are necessary to realize this thriving digital and tech sector for the city.
Well, thank you for that question. It sort of leans a little bit towards what Julie was just talking about. It really is a cohesive way that we sort of approach technology. We start with people. I realized anyway, from my own prism, is that if you look at the Maslow's laws, I believe connectivity is at the bottom now, right? It becomes an essential thing. And as I looked at that, I was like, wow, it turns out when I look at, a Facebook or a Twitter or these social platforms or even these marketplaces, it turns out that we as human beings like to be connected. You almost can't lose if you're connecting people. So I think we as a community in the tech sector, we started out with a simple notion. If you really go way back, and I can go way back, we started our community by sharing. That's how it all started. It's like, hey, I got this code. You want this code? You got this code? I got that code. And everything was democratized and shared because it wasn't corporate driven. All of us who were like original coders, all we did was get online and pass through information to each other. So it starts with that value of sharing, of getting people together. And then all of a sudden we had this new culture called meetups, right? We just, hey, everybody meet me at the bar, man. We're going to talk about something. And so all of a sudden, you know, it didn't matter how many people came or whatever it was just a way of what we call galvanizing the community. And it didn't matter whether you were a techie or not. It may be something you wanted to learn about, something you want to connect with, somebody you want to partner with, all that kind of energy. And we used to have things like art meets tech. We would have these meetups, art meets tech. And you would have these populations that come together and they galvanize around the idea that if we can connect, perhaps we can move our community forward. And we actually saw it happen. We've had incredible success in Upper Manhattan around virtual reality, for example, where kids will come up with these virtual reality stories about heroes and sheroes of Harlem, and then you'll see them in the store window. And you're like, whoa, what's going on here? Well, that's art meets tech. And so I think as a community in New York City, to Julie's point, which New York is very unique in that we're actually able to really come together because of the way perhaps the topography of Manhattan and the city at large. Maybe it's just the hustle that New Yorkers have. All that has created this energy where we're seeing people coming to New York. I was on the phone while I was late with a group that wants to, never done business in New York, but they are feeling it. It's like, we really want to be in New York. And I can't tell you the number of people that call us like that. And Julie, we get these calls all the time. Because people want to work in New York because they feel the energy. And as you know, if a New York is happy with something, they hang on it for a while. So we think that it's just one of these things that's not only sustainable, but it's really scalable. Imagine, like you said, having young people, you know, being able to connect their art, creativity, technology, overall intelligence to solve some problems, right? We're working on serious problems in this country, from environment to water, all these things that are impacting our lives, right? We had, and I'll end with this, we had some kids, we take on normally we take 20 kids every summer, but this past year we took on 120. I don't know what was going on in my mind, but we took on 120 kids because we were very afraid that there weren't going to be nothing for them to do. And I thought, that's a real pandemic if you got a bunch of high school people running around with no jobs and no school. So we took on 120 kids. And I'll never forget when we were doing some orientation with one of the cohorts and the kids weren't on. And I asked my team, where are these other 3 kids? And we tracked them down and we found out, they said, we really wanted to be on, but we didn't have any electricity. What? I mean, when's the last time you heard something like that? I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And so when you think about that, these kids are now having to go, are they gonna be growing up thinking that's a normal thing to not have energy, to not have electricity? Or can we help them on their own become creative enough to say, how do I solve this issue, right? How do we solve this issue? Because really, my generation has done a hell of a lot, right? We got the cell phone and we got the internet rolling. We got a lot of stuff done, and I'm not finished. But I do know that I'm trying to do the best I can to not pass on old problems, right? We're going to solve those, but these young people have new problems to solve. And that's going to require tech, creativity, straight up New York hustle, and we can actually make things happen. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I love that.
But first of all, Julie, I wanted to ask you the same question about the ecosystem in New York and what partnerships you see as necessary to really make that thriving digital and tech sector a reality.
Well, listen, I think one of the things that I'm very interested in, and I spend a lot of time thinking about too, is as the tech sector becomes more mature, as the companies frankly just become bigger, a bigger part of the economic pie, honestly, as more people make more money in tech, what does that look like for the city? Culturally, how does that play itself out? How do we integrate the sector with the broader civic infrastructure around us, whether that be political or philanthropic or whatever civic things are happening in the city, what does that look like as tech becomes more and more a part of New York? Because that's happening. And the good news about that is that while a lot of other industries post-COVID are actually pulling out of New York, tech is doubling down. And that's good. And it's good for a lot of reasons, not least of all because I firmly believe that tech companies will expand here, will grow here, et cetera, et cetera. I keep saying that. But they're not going to turn New York into like some tech capital. They're going to become part of New York, right? And that is a really important piece of this element. So to answer your question about partnerships, like that opens up the door to countless partnerships. What does it look like when tech companies or when individuals who work in tech are now kind of the stewards of some of the cultural institutions in the city, the local theaters, some of the smaller museums? How do we better support those institutions? What does that look like? And I think we're figuring that out right now. I think we're like at the beginning of a really important time. I think a lot about this and how we're going to unlock that in a healthy way for New York City. But beyond that, that's like a little bit more abstract. That's the bigger project. We're doing a lot of thinking about that. But more specifically, I think there are a lot of really interesting projects you see happening in the schools, post-secondary education, but also, in the high schools. The Brooklyn Navy Yard has this amazing STEAM center where they, a lot of these places, there's some great 3D printing companies in New York, a lot of really interesting stuff happening in Brooklyn in particular on this. And think about Etsy. Etsy is a huge New York headquartered company in Dumbo that really celebrates artisans and has just a very artistic kind of cultural inherent to it. And all of these things, like to me, that is such a great New York story. I think about Warby Parker. That is a company, they sell eyeglasses, but that's a company that like has used design and branding in an amazing, amazing way. And now everyone's trying to be the Warby of everything because they were so great with the design and the branding. And that's a New York story. So how do we like pull all these pieces together? I hope Tech NYC is a big piece of this. We really make an effort to be part of the broader city and not just part of our tech members. And I think you'll see more and more happening across the city like that.
The confidence and optimism for New York City in both of you is very inspiring to hear. And I'm curious, against the background of having been through the pandemic, alongside polarization, civil unrest, and exposure of some pretty deep inequities in our systems, where are you both going to focus the work of your organizations first, like in the coming weeks? What's top of mind for you both as you take those organizations forward? And Clayton, if you'd respond first.
Well, we did a rapid response to COVID. It turned out that 2020, I hate to say it, actually was pretty good for technology. I mean, everybody was calling us, help me with this, help me with that. And so in a lot of ways, 2020 really, gave us a little bit of a boost. And what we do to follow up on that is really prepare the community for the next thing. We can't say that the pandemic is going to be the last moment in time when we have problems. There's more coming. So the strategy for us is to prepare the community for anything and everything that may come. We built a resilient network in East Harlem, which is vulnerable to hurricanes because it sits in a flood zone, and therefore when the East Harlem, overflows, it comes right down East Harlem. So we don't want to see the businesses lose as a result of that. So we built things like that. But more importantly, this really comes down to, how do you sort of future-proof your community? And the way we look at it is it starts with the internet. What some of the people on this call may or may not realize, 40% of people in Harlem don't have internet in the home. 40%. That's a problem. 40%. And it's not because there's not access. It's just too costly. And I don't want to turn this into that kind of conversation, but it really motivates me to ensure that everyone's connected. When the pandemic hit, we were hit the hardest in Harlem. People dying. A lot of it was because they couldn't get to a doctor and the hospitals were closing down, and it was really difficult to get help. And if you didn't have an internet connection, you couldn't do the telehealth, right? And prior to the pandemic, I think it was like 10% of people were doing telehealth across the country. After the pandemic, it's like 90% of people are able to do it. But if you don't have the internet, I mean, you're in trouble. So to future-proof that, you have to basically do the basic things. Make sure everyone has a connection. Make sure everyone has some level of digital literacy. And you gotta stay in front of this. You gotta really do the research so that you're not repeating the same mistakes. So all of that is what we focus on in terms of moving forward, is making sure, and we connect, right? We connect with Tech NYC. We connect with Strive and other organizations around this city in order that it's a comprehensive, all voices to the table. We look at our humanity as, you know, it doesn't matter how differently abled you might be. Some people call it disabled, but I call it differently abled. It doesn't matter what you look like, who you are, whatever. Your voice needs to be at the table. We've got one shot right now, one shot that's vital right now, Elise, which is infrastructure. You hear it from the federal government, you're hearing it from the governor, you're hearing it from the city, you're hearing it from the public sector. What does that mean? That means, can we do, and this is a Clayton Banks phrase, can we do infrastructure for equality? That is the moment in time in our lives right now. This great moment where the entire world, frankly, needs an upgrade, streets, bridges, and tunnels, but that also includes broadband. And if we can now look at infrastructure for equality, where if you're differently able, the infrastructure will work for you, or if you live in a certain neighborhood, the infrastructure can work for you and move you forward. That's the great moment in time we have right now. That's why I have spent so much time with the city on figuring out the type of principles that need to go behind that. When you look at George Washington Bridge of New York City, there's somebody in this city probably that goes, you know, my great grandmother or my great grandfather was involved in that project. What are we going to say about today's projects? Will it be designed and thought through from men only, for example, which traditionally has been the case? Go to, live in the suburbs and go to good schools, and that's their prism. Nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't necessarily accommodate everybody. So we got to get everyone at the table to create this great new movement, usher in the fourth industrial revolution. And wow, you talk about unleashing innovation, unleashing invention, unleashing, creativity. That infrastructure will bolster that in a unique way, in my opinion.
And Julie, what's vitally knocking at your door?
First of all, I don't know how I'm going to follow that. Can I just bottle Clayton and take him around with me for some energy? Listen, I think first I agree with all of that. One other thing I'd layer on top that we're spending a lot of time at Tech NYC are issues around workforce development, computer science education. I think this is, we don't usually call it infrastructure, but I think in many ways it's the same. It's one of these very important building blocks for our society, for our city. How do we make sure that kids in New York City are getting the education they need, are getting the introduction to these concepts early? So if they're interested, if they have some aptitude, if they think robotics are fun or coding is fun, or if they like it, then they can pursue it. How do we level that playing field as much as possible? So all kids who look all different, from each other have that access. And there's a lot of great stuff. Actually, New York, I think, is doing a much better job of this than a lot of other cities in the country. I mean, we have a ton to do, but just by way of example, we've got this really robust, we're about, I think two-thirds of the way through this really robust, amazing project called CS for All, where we're actually training the city is training public school teachers so that every New York City public school will have some computer science education. We need to blow that out of the water. That is an amazing start. And we need to just expand. So I'm really hoping we can kind of focus on that. It's hard. It's really, education is like a big old ship that slowly moves the same, and how you change it, it's complicated, but it's crucial.
Important work ahead. Well, that brings us to the end of today's conversation around digital and tech design. I wanted to thank you both, Julie and Clayton, for such a great conversation, and to encourage the audience to check out the full schedule for Design Days, which is available on our website at NYCxDESIGN.org. And finally, thank you to SANDOW Design Group for airing today's conversation on DesignTV by SANDOW. Thanks for tuning in to NYC by Design and this program for Design Days. And now I'd like to thank our sponsor of today's conversation, Material Bank.